I'm Luke Story. For the past 22 years, I've been relentlessly committed to my deepest passion, designing the ultimate lifestyle based on the most powerful principles of spirituality, health, psychology, and personal development. The Lifestylist Podcast is a show dedicated to sharing my discoveries and the experts behind them with you. Welcome back to the show, Marie.
Thank you so much, Luke. I'm so excited. I've been actually waiting for this. I think I contacted you once or twice, like, hey, when are we going to hang out?
I'm so glad we had the opportunity. Yeah, we recorded our last episode, which I think was 245 for those listening. And we talked about during that interview, we got to do this again. And that's like over a year ago or something, I think.
Right.
Maybe. Yeah.
Right.
And then you were out of the country, I think, for a time. And, now is the perfect time. So I'm really glad to see you.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm stoked because I was looking at, I think, your new website. It looks like it's been redesigned since I last looked at it.
Yeah, it went live about a couple weeks ago.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And it's absolutely beautiful. And so I was
Thank
like,
you.
oh, she's really stepping into this now. And so it's a perfect time to bring you on the show.
Thank you.
So what I think would be fun, I saw that you brought your drum. And I know you have your medicine, and I thought it could be cool to perhaps start the show with a little guided journey of your choice. If you want to take us through any length of a mini ceremony, prayer, meditation, whatever you want to call it, however you want to do it.
That's beautiful. Yes, the drum wanted to come. It's an absolutely beautiful drum for people who can see, and I will guide us through a drum journey where I'm going to call the directions. It's a method of coming into sacred place, sacred space that many cultures use, many native cultures use, where you call all the directions, the elements, the ancestors. So I'm going to take us through that so that all this episode is going to be a ceremony.
I love it.
Awesome. So for people who are listening, if you're driving, make sure you keep your eyes open, or maybe you pull over, because the drum can take you into altered state of consciousness, because the repetitive pattern that I'm going to play actually works on the reticular activating system, that part of the brain that keeps you awake and aware, and it shuts it down. So you might find yourself, without knowing, in altered state. So you want to make sure that you're sitting, you're comfortable. Maybe you can close your eyes during this. It's not going to be long, maybe 5 minutes.
Awesome.
It might seem like it's very
game.
long, but
take us away.
All right. Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, hey yeah, oh yeah, hey yeah, oh yeah, hey yeah, oh yeah, hey yeah, hey yeah, oh hey yeah, hey yeah, oh. Hey ya, oh. Hey ya, oh, hey ya, oh, hey ya, oh. Eastern Gateway. I call on the east, home of the rising sun. I call on the wind to bring us illumination, clarity, wisdom, discernment. I call on eagle, condor, hawk to be with us in this beautiful podcast episode. I call on the south, element of fire, the the fire of transmutation, the fire of transformation. I call on the energies of the fire to be with us and teach us how to burn away anything that doesn't serve with ease and grace. I call on snake medicine, grandfather, grandmother, snake, serpent to teach us how to shed any skin that is too small for us in one fluid motion. I call on the West, the waters, water element, the oceans, lakes, seas, waterfalls, rivers, ponds. I call on the rains. I call on our own sweat. I call on our tears. I call on our tears, our sweat, to be with us and to teach us how to go within. I call on Black Panther, Black Jaguar to teach us how to integrate our shadow. I call on the North element of earth. I call on the ancestors of this land of California and the ancestors of any place you are listening to in the world. I call on the wisdom of those who have come before us. I call on the wisdom of the earth, all that has lived, all that has died, all that has transformed into nourishing soil. I call on Owl to teach us how to see 360 degrees. I call on the great below, the great mother. I call on the great mother, Pachamama, our beautiful blue planet, to teach us how to love, teach us patience, teach us how to love and how to hold. I call on the great above, Pachatata, Faiskather, the masculine principle, the arrow in all of us. I call on the star people. I call on galactic councils. I call on angelic beings and our own higher selves and our own hearts. May our hearts open. May our hearts open to receive the message of this podcast, the message being broadcast today. May all of us heal from the words that we are receiving today. Bring your awareness to your breath, breathing in through your nose, breathing out through your mouth, coming into presence, into this moment, right now. Aho. Just letting this energy circulate in your body, feeling your body, feeling your presence, who you are at the core. Receiving the healing that's happening right now. And with your next breath, inhale deeply. Exhale everything with sound. And gently open your eyes when you're ready. Mm.
Well, that has to be the most profound way I think I've ever opened a podcast. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What a great way to set the tone.
This podcast is a ceremony. You know, when you invited me and what you've been doing these months, you know, showing up to stand for humanity, I feel that. And this is what it's about. It's a ceremony, and we're standing up for humanity. Yeah.
It's funny, I find myself in this moment having an experience that's somewhat common for me, and that is in itself ironic, because essentially what I do for a living is talk, right? And then listen to people talk, of course. And there are some experiences that are beyond words, you know, and often the transmission is just experienced and felt through presence. And I find myself now, I just want to sit here and just bask in the beautiful energy that you've channeled into the room. You know, it's like everything I wanted to say seems like we don't need to even say it, just be it, you know, but at the same time, I guess we're beholden to say something. So it's incredible. When you started singing, oh my God, my heart just exploded with a knowingness, a familiarity. It's such a great experience to be able to be aware of that you know something, even though consciously you don't.
Right.
You know, it's just, oh yeah, I've been here before.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Isn't that one of the great mysteries of being incarnated, where some of us, at least myself, I mean, I've had a few experiences in which past lives were revealed in some sense, but we're sort of gifted with, and in a sense cursed with, amnesia when we're born in each body. And nature hasn't really designed us to have the tactile relationship with those many, many pasts that we've had. It just kind of plops us into this one, and we have the opportunity to karmically learn whatever there is within this span of one lifetime.
And then move on. You know, as you were talking and as I was looking at you, you know, I remember that the reason we are here as humans is to be. And beingness can only be felt. It cannot be thought. It cannot be imagined. It can only be felt. And, you know, with what's happening with, you know, the pandemic, the racial unrest, we have forgotten to be. So I'm so happy that you allowed this to be a ceremony where the first thing we did was to come into beingness, to come into presence. Because when we're present, we are aware. And where we are aware, well, the sky's the limit.
Oh man, you're so awesome. I remember when I first met you, we were at the Bulletproof Upgrade Labs conference.
Yeah.
And I was doing a bunch of interviews there, and there were a lot of, I mean, within the context of that scene, there were a lot of famous speakers and things like that. And I was, you know, doing my best to track down all of the big names and things like that. And then I think maybe we were outdoors, and I forget if someone introduced us or if we just ran into one another. But I remember the moment I met you, thinking,
I can tell you what happened.
You do? Well, because my memory's a little.
So what happened was, you know, you were interviewing all these people, and I was sitting there with a friend who was going to be interviewed by you. And as I was sitting there, I started connecting with you energetically. And after that friend was done, I just, you know, after we were introduced, I said, you should interview me.
Oh, you did? That's funny. I don't remember you recommending it.
And I was like, you know, I'm right here.
That's dope. That's dope. You know, it's funny.
And then you were like, yeah, I've been thinking that. I mean, because we instantly connected.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what happened. I was like, you should interview me.
Was it Daniel Raphael?
It was Daniel.
We just spoke yesterday. He's in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
We had to talk on the phone, and his there's this time delay. We're talking on signals. So it was the weirdest conversation because I'm like, "Did you hear what I just said?" And then it's very delayed. But anyway, yeah, that's right. We were outside. Yeah, I just remember, of course, like I don't always interview people that are the main speaker at a conference or something, but I'm intentional about the way that I book the show and stuff. But yeah, I just remember looking in her eyes, and I was like, "Oh, she gets it. She's awake."
Yeah.
That's the sense that I get with some people.
And we had like a wordless conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we just went for it. Like we didn't even know what we were going to talk about.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
Oh man, that's great. Well, we're about to do it today, and I know a little bit about what we're going to talk about.
I don't. But
yeah,
it's
that's
cool.
the way I like it. Every once in a while, a guest will be like, "Send me the questions," and I go, "I'm like, no, man, that'll ruin the spontaneity."
Yeah.
I don't even really want to know what the questions are, because they often change. But I do think your origin story is fascinating, and it's something we didn't get to delve too deeply into.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just actually personally very curious about what it was like to grow up in Africa.
Cameroon.
Yeah, in Cameroon.
Yeah.
What it was like for you to grow up. What was your surroundings, the culture like? I remember you telling me that you were exposed to shamanism in a really early age, as well as Iboga, I think, was in the story there.
Yeah.
And then you eventually ended up migrating to the States and becoming an MD. And it just seems like a fascinating journey. Now, there's so much more that I want to talk about, but I would like to just give the audience and myself a sense of your origins and how you ended up where you are right now.
Wow. So, pretty rich story. Because of so many different pieces. Like I said, I was born in Cameroon, Africa. Yaoundé is the capital city. That's my hometown. Like about 2.8 million people. And it had two faces, when I was a kid. It was very patriarchal and yet very progressive. And by that, I mean, the school system, education was really great. However, if you were a girl or a woman, you were supposed to, marry a guy and bear children. And since I was a kid, since I was 7, I knew that I wanted to be a doctor. And I had been told that, girls don't do that. You shouldn't do that. And I was already a rebel. I'm an Aquarian, so I did it anyway. And there's only one medical school. There was only one medical school that took 75 people every year because that was the capacity. So every year people have to take an exam, like 10,000 people, and they take the top 75. Every high school and, first year university, they take the exam. And even if I had been told it would never happen, I did it anyway. And I went into medical school and I graduated and I started working. And what happened was that every day I had to prove myself as a doctor because I'm a woman. And after a while, I was like, I can't do this every day of my life. I went to medical school. I had the same training. I was top of my class anyway. So like, it's not just because you're, of the masculine gender that you're superior. So I decided to come to America. But coming back to the shamanism and the plant medicine, when I was a teenager, my mother had cancer, and she didn't want to have surgery, and so she was going to the Iboga people to heal, and she was taking Iboga. However, she couldn't hear what Iboga was saying, and she couldn't understand. And Iboga told her that she should get me because I will get it. So I was 14 the first time I did Iboga. And for those who have taken Iboga, it's undescribable. It's I don't know how much I can say here, but anyway, it was a profound experience. And I was shown the medicine. I was shown exactly where to get it, the plants, how to prepare them. And my mother took them and she healed. Like, she didn't have surgery. She didn't. And so that happened. The healing of my mother happened in the span of 3 months. So I was taking Iboga every weekend, 3 days, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You know, I had to come out of school for 3 months.
Wow.
And the I don't even know. It's because if my mother hadn't been sick, I don't think I could have ever, because it really doesn't taste good. And so anyway, and I already knew before that I had spiritual gifts. I was just, hiding them. And that, spending that much time with Iboga absolutely opened me up and coded me. I could hear people's thoughts. It was incredible. And I was only 14. So what I did was push it back down after my mom was healed, because it was just a lot.
I'm curious, I always like the picturesque details of these stories. So,
yeah.
So you're living in a city of 2+ million people.
Yes.
And when you would go have these experiences with these shaman, would you go out to the countryside, or
yes,
was this?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm a city girl. I was born in the city. And the shamans were, if I take miles, because we used a metric system, maybe like 10 miles out of the city, not too far, but out. So it was, this place with a lot of nature, a lot of trees, a big, it wasn't really like a house. It was like a hall type, like a ceremony type of place that was really open, and people could sit with the medicine. And there was the outside also had a lot of places where people could sit. And I remember the first time that I went there, I was so afraid, because I actually didn't know what it was. Like my parents, like my stepdad was a diplomat. I was in international school. So I didn't really know, I wasn't going to villages, and I didn't know that. I didn't know my grandmother was Catholic. I didn't really like going to church, so I wasn't going. So I didn't know any of this. And however, because my mother had heard that people can heal with plant medicine, that's why she went there. And the first time that I was served, I remember there was a mat, some type of mat, and I was sitting down, and there was a plate of iboga, like the bark of a tree. This is not like water, or it's not liquid. It's like the bark of a tree that's bitter, that you have to chew and swallow. That's intense. And the shaman was sitting in front of me, and he would feed me a spoon of this raw, dusty bark thing to chew and swallow. It was like, I don't know, more than 10 spoons of this thing. And the first night, the first time that it happened, I was like, I thought I would, not keep it down. However, every time it happened, I would think about my mother who really needed me. And when the journey came, it literally was like, I still remember it until today. It was like a light bulb was flipped on. It was literally like I was this way, and then it was like click, and then like everything was different. And I found myself, I went with the goal of finding medicine for my mother. And the first vision I had, I was with my brother that I had never met. My brother passed away as a baby before I was born. And I was with him. And I knew that it was him, even if I had never seen him. And we started talking. And then after that, I was with my great grandmother who had passed away 3 years before that. Like that is like the opening scene.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, and then, benevolent beings is what I'm going to call that, took me, like they showed me where there was a specific, there were like 3 plants. And remember, I didn't know plants because I was a city girl, but they showed me like, when you're done with this, you're going to go here, you're going to turn left, and you're going to go down. Like there was it was in a village, so it wasn't paved. It was like going down like a ravine type of thing. And you're going to find this, and this is what it looks like, and it's right here. And you're going to take the leaves this way, and you're also going to take that, and then you're going to boil this for this long, and you're going to mix this like that.
Wow. That's
and
incredible.
I didn't forget anything. So when the medicine was over, I was just like, oh, I have to go, to this place. And my mother was like, where are you going? Are you okay? Are you, and it was like, no, I have to go get this medicine. And I just knew. I had never been into, to that place. And I knew exactly where to go and what to get and how to take care of it. So that was like my first.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So
it's just, I love these kind of stories that step outside of our limited dimensional awareness.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most powerful things about not only plant medicines, but other modalities that have been discovered that enable you to access those different planes of awareness and information and entities and all of that, which at one point in my life I would have thought was completely insane because it wasn't empirical and tangible and
that tangible word.
It wasn't intellectually, the domain of the intellect caps out at a certain level.
It does.
And so if you're in that level, anything beyond that level seems impossible because they're in 2 completely different paradigms. I always think of it as trying to explain sky to a fish.
Right.
It's just, well, except for perhaps a flying fish.
Yeah.
But, you can explain sky to a fish and they just go, what? You're insane. That doesn't exist. It's just all wet. This is it,
Yeah.
So that must have been, so when you went and got this medicine then and prepared it, was this part of your mom's protocol?
Yes, it was my mom's protocol, and it was very detailed and it's like I knew I didn't forget anything. It was like it was imprinted. I knew what to do, how much to give. Like I didn't forget. It wasn't like I had a dream and it was like, it was online. I think that's how I can describe that. But I wanted to comment on, what you said a little bit about, the intellectual capacity and the limitation. I think that things are changing. These are changing because, depending on what you do, you can augment. I'm going to use AI terms. You can augment yourself. You can augment your reality. Like, look at what we had with this drum journey. I mean, boom, right? Experiential things are what really expand you and your intellect, because then you understand that the tools that you need to prove whatever you think you need to prove are what limit you. Because if you're using technology that's like aged or antiquated to try to prove something, I mean, it's not going to work. It's like a computer, the memory that you have, the RAM, the capacity, the processors, that's what allows you to, do as many ones and zeros as you need. If you have a small computer or all your memory is taken up by, 100 applications running, I mean, you're not going to be computing, right? So anyway, I don't even remember what the question was.
Well, that's good. It's not important. Trust me. So, I mean, at the same time, while I want to explore your past because it's so fascinating, I think we could do a 10-hour show just on that. There are so many current events that I want to really dive into with you as well. But, that being your beginning, so you're the city girl, and because of this, seemingly insurmountable challenge of your mom's illness with the cancer, you're then led into these experiences with the iboga. You learn how to develop these herbal preparations, etc. Your mom heals. And then, as you said earlier, you were aware of some of these spiritual gifts and these awakenings, but because you had other plans or it wasn't socially acceptable or whatever reason, you started to kind of suppress them.
What it was that, after noticing that, I just started noticing that everybody was not like me. I would go to school and, people would talk and I would know, what they wanted to say, even if they didn't say anything. My intuition. And I started noticing that, everybody's not, I thought that's how humans are. I thought everybody was like that until I realized that, some people are not like that. And I wanted to belong. And I thought that in order to belong, and I thought this for a long time, in order to belong, I had to be exactly like everybody else. That's why I started, pretending and hiding my gifts and suppressing. And then I went into medical school and, I was the scientist. I was that person, I became that person who was laughing at people who had crystals. Like, what is that, right? I was.
Yeah, I get it.
That's how much I suppressed that part of me. And then, so as I was saying, after working as a doctor in Cameroon for a few months and meeting resistance because I was a woman, I decided to come to America, where I did my residency in anesthesiology. And I loved anesthesiology because it's like, I mean, you're your own like Jedi. You do what you want, how you want it. And in 2012, something happened. I couldn't hide anymore. It's how I'm going to put it. It was like spiritual pressure. I would see people and then I would start channeling without wanting to, like people's ancestors, who had like maybe passed away would be like, tell him he should keep the family name, and people that I didn't know. And I would be like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I have to tell you this message. And it happened the first time. It was at Awesomeness Fest, A Fest, and big conference thing. And it was happening. And that's when I was like, okay, I have to take control of. Like, I can't, because I was stopping it. It was coming out when I didn't want it. Like, when somebody's bottled up, something is bottled up and just explodes. And so that's when I started the journey to accepting myself as a shaman. But yeah, I did not want to be that person. And so as I started that journey, I started noticing that I was the only one who thought I was hiding. Like, everybody else could see, but me. And it's, in my hospital, when I was bringing my patients from surgery, the nurses would always be like, oh, I'll take your patient. I'll take your patient. And I thought they were taking everybody's patient, that they were just being polite. And then one day I was walking back from the operating room with, very sick patient. And there was another person who had a very easy, like, young guy. And nobody even looked at him. And the nurses were like, I'll take your patient. And I thought, this is... So I went back to the nurses and I said, why do you always want to get my patients? And they said, your patients wake up without pain. And they're very polite. Even when they have pain, they ask politely and they calm and they wake up with a smile. And I also started noticing that, when somebody was having a hard time, they would, call Dr. Mbouni. She'll calm them down. She's the verbal Xanax. Like, people could feel... That was my name.
I can sense that.
The verbal Xanax. Like, so what it made me realize was that people could feel something. And so me trying to hide it really wasn't that successful. And so plus I couldn't hide it anymore. I couldn't. So I decided to start my studies into shamanism and energy, and then I came out. I actually called it, I'm coming out. I'm coming out as spiritual. I said that in my hospital. I'm coming out as spiritual. And I started, with my patients, when I put them to sleep, I took them on mini journeys.
Really?
I meditate. I stopped saying, count from 100 to like 99. Like, no, it was just like, we're going to go on a little journey. And people were like, yeah. And I was like, do you want a meditation before you go to sleep? Yes. I started bridging, in a gentle way, like just being me, using all of me, because I'm spiritual, I'm energetic, I'm physical, and I was like, no more compartmentalizing myself. I was done with that. I had done it for a long time. So
that's really inspiring. I know a lot of people, including myself, have a really hard time embracing those parts of themselves, and finding their calling, finding their Dharma, and even in having it revealed, is one thing, but then to start moving into it, into the unknown of like, is this going to work? How does this become a career? Like all of that. I know I've struggled with that a lot, and I've interviewed a lot of people that had prior careers and lives and then kind of came out, as you said, or transitioned into one in which they're sharing metaphysical gifts, spiritual gifts, and how to figure out how to ethically and with integrity create a business out of that feels good and not weird and cheesy. And it's a tricky one, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing right now. I stopped working as an anesthesiologist last April.
Good for you.
Yeah. And thank you.
I mean, I'm bummed though, because if I ever have surgery, I want to bring you out of retirement.
I still have my license.
Okay, good.
It was really about acknowledging that I am doing this. Because if I was still doing it, then I could be like, I'm tired today or whatever. But it was like, no, this is what I'm doing. And I want to give myself the time, the chance to really do this. And, you were talking about business and, metaphysical or spiritual business not being cheesy or whatever. And what it is that people feel the integrity. And integrity comes from authenticity. Like not trying to repeat or copy or pretend. Like really using your gifts that are yours. Because what happens sometimes with spiritual people is, they want to have a business and then they see something that they think worked, that somebody else did, and then they're doing the same thing. And people can feel like that's not your gift, right? And you feel it too. So you come out as totally fake. And it also comes from, separation, judgment, label, that one is good, that one is bad. However, you don't even know. So what I know for sure is that, and I think we were talking a little bit about that, when you talked about when we come to earth and we have the karmic things we need to do, everybody comes here for a reason. And you learn lessons, you get gifts from those things, and your gifts are here to be shared. Yours, not mine. And what happens is, in our society, it's so easy to belittle our own gifts and be like, oh, I only know how to sing. Like, well, do you know how many people would love to learn how to sing in a spiritual way? I mean, you don't know. And what we do when we really accept and harness our spiritual gifts, it's like breadcrumbs that you leave for other people, because we're here to show the way. And then the people who are like you, who are here to learn the same lessons, they can follow your footsteps. They can follow the breadcrumbs. They have hope. They inspire. That's what it is about. And yes, it can be monetized, and I hope it is monetized, because abundance. I mean, the universe is abundant, and I think that it is our responsibility to share our gifts. And so that you can bring people to presence so they can really say yes or no. I'm passionate about this.
I love it. It's important, man, because I think that so many of us struggle in finding what our unique gift is. And when we do, and speaking again from my own personal experience, I worked in the fashion industry for a long time, and I just kind of fell into it, and it was fun and creative, and it was fine, at least for 17 years.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, meanwhile, I'm having conversations like this and into all the stuff that I'm still into kind of in my private life. And at a certain point, it just became unbearable to do anything other than that. But it has been challenging at times to really take ownership of my gifts and not to hide out. Because even though I'm in this career now, I can still hide out in the more superficial type of content and things like that, in a sense, And I think when you're talking about that genuineness and authenticity of a teacher that's truly embodied and is in an original way manifesting, cultivating, and demonstrating and teaching their unique gift, that when you see others that are perhaps, for a lack of experience or depth, coming off as kind of shallow, for me, that brings up a fear of being seen like that. You see what I mean?
I get it.
So I'll look at maybe someone a bit younger who is, I'm sensing that hasn't been on the path that long and, perhaps hasn't really dug into that shadow work and really, gone to the depths of hell and back like I think I have.
Yeah.
It sounds like you have to a degree too.
I have.
I'll have a judgment on them and I'll be like, oh shit, I never want anyone to look at me like that, which is all still the same ego game, right? Of wanting people's approval or being afraid of how you're perceived publicly and if you're respected or taken seriously. And I think these are the traps that are really important to illuminate, because whether you're a spiritual teacher or you're the best bricklayer in the world, to neglect that out of other people's perceived judgment or future judgment is really like a prison that we put ourselves in, isn't it?
Absolutely. I'm so happy that you brought that up and you used the word judgment. Judgment really comes from our perceptions and our beliefs and the agreements that we make with ourselves. I don't want to be seen as. But somebody else could look at that and think, wow, this is incredible. So what agreements do we have with ourselves? What prisons do we put ourselves in? What labels do we give ourselves? And here's the thing, which is that I don't think that the word ego has been used so many different ways and being made the bad guy, right? However, we need to have an ego to have an individuation, and also we need to let go of it to have like interconnectedness and oneness. And so your ego, your uniqueness. However, there's this real thing about how we come out as. And I think that I have a question, which is, how do you want to show up instead of how do I come off as?
That's good.
How do you want to show up? Because it's never really about being perfect, because we always have room to grow. I don't know about you. It's like when you arrive somewhere, it's like, oh, there's more to do, right? Like we're never done. So it is about showing up your best, showing up in the best way possible with what you know, what you have, what you see, what you feel. The job is to be connected to yourself, to be aware of yourself, to know that, I'm going into the ego now. Okay, let's veer back. Because nobody's ever really completely done, right? We fluctuate. We change, we move, we dance. Like even the universe is like that. Nothing is static. Like, oh, I'm at this level now and I'm just staying here. Even our levels of consciousness, you go high, you come low, you dance and you go back. And it is our awareness. Like, what do you do to really be self-aware? To notice that, okay, I said I'm going to show up this way. However, it's not happening. What's going on? What are the fears that are making me act this way? What do I not want to see? Who do I not want to be? Right? You ask those questions and then you're going to have an answer. And for example, about the young people who, like maybe who haven't done, I'm just taking what you said, paraphrasing you here, who haven't done enough work and show up as shallow. That's how they show up to certain people. However, there might be other people who are so shallow. Their shallowness is their depth.
Right.
Like their shallowness is like their depth, right? So it's this releasing judgment and just notice like, wow, okay, that was pretty shallow, and like, hey, that's where they are.
That's such a good point.
And not make it mean anything about them, because they're probably trying their best. And somebody is probably just waking up and be like, whoa, that was profound.
Right. Well, that reminds me of on my journey of 24 years or so since my initial awakening, that there have been so many different teachers or books or teachings or modalities or systems that have met me at a certain level on that ascension that were just mind-blowing, just paradigm shifting, completely altered my entire world.
Yeah.
And I work with them or that or whatever it is for a period of time. And then that just seems to become integrated.
And then you go to the next.
Yeah, and then years later I look back and I'm like, that was basic. You know what I mean? I'm like, that book? What?
Right?
I mean, I remember when I first read The Power of Now, I was just like, oh my God, you're not your mind? What? There's a now. What is a now? It was so revolutionary and I'm not saying, I'm at Eckhart Tolle level now or something, but I read that book now. I'm like, well, duh.
Oh, of course.
Obviously, because there's been so much integration and life experience since that initial contact with that particular teaching. In other words, like maybe I was kind of looking up at that particular vantage point, and then through the work and commitment and surrender and God's grace, you're given a higher vantage point, higher not being better without that judgment, but just what we'd say a higher level of consciousness. So it's fascinating, and that's what keeps it interesting to me too.
Yeah.
Because as you said, there's always more to learn. So just when I arrive at a place, we're like, all right, I pretty much have my framework for reality in place.
You should never do that.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be challenged.
Oh my God. Yeah. I recently, I have so much more I want to cover with you, because we could go on forever on these tangents.
Right.
But I recently had completely earth-shattering experience of meeting the Bufo alvarius toad medicine. And I can't even say anything about it. I've been wanting to do a podcast kind of about it, or with some, a shaman who works with that medicine or something. I'm just like, I can't say anything really for a while, because it just annihilated so much of the fog and Maya. And experiences like that my life seems to be punctuated by at different times, just completely, eclipse so many of my prior understandings,
right,
and perceptions and ways of thinking about things. So
that's how it works with consciousness, right? An ascension process is that it is an ascension, because if you stop, you're not ascending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I notice in my case, if I stop growing, it's not even that I get to stay at the same level. I start sliding backwards.
Right. Right.
It's like riding a bike uphill and you stop pedaling. You can't just stay in that spot.
Yeah. And it's, one thing that maybe, many of the listeners have noticed, or maybe not, what happens when you really are committed to the ascension path. I'm not saying being, I'm missing the word here, like really, narrow-minded or all like, oh yeah. When you are committed, what happens is that as your consciousness changes and your energy field opens, you start having synchronicities, synchrodestinies, experiences that all coalesce and just come together to give you the experience that you need to go to the next step. And it's just so beautiful. Like I laugh, like if you hear me even when I'm alone, sometimes I laugh out loud because, 2 weeks later, I'm like, but of course, that's why that happened. And so really, and and I'm going to do a parallel how we started this journey in going into presence and beingness, because our job as humans, our spiritual purpose is to be who you are. That's your purpose. To be who you are, meaning everything, your gifts, your challenges, because your challenges, when you overcome them, you'll be able to teach someone else. Like, hey, this is what I did and it helped me. Your purpose is to be you.
That's so awesome. That could be, I think I already named this episode. Like, that might take over the title. Your purpose is to be you.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
Because
in all of your completeness and wholeness. Yeah.
Yes.
I like that, because I think many of us think, well, my purpose is to
teach people how to, whatever,
to operate from one's higher self, right? And that's the real you. And then, as you were saying, like the ego and all of this is sort of looked down upon as something that we have to transcend. That's not us, but in truth, it really is all part of us. Even our lower nature is still kind of tethered to at least this earthly experience.
Exactly. And this notion that the ego needs to be transcended is what brings a lot of spiritual bypassing, where people don't want to feel the pain. They don't want to feel the anger. They want to transcend it. You cannot transcend if you don't feel. Anybody who is in metaphysics or energetics will let you know that, during my studies, like my studies with humans and my studies with non-humans, no way. You cannot transcend if you don't feel it. That's what transcendence means. It doesn't mean jumping over it,
going around,
putting
it.
a bra.
Well, this is a perfect segue, because as much as I love to just go into the depth here, and that's my favorite content to really produce, is just having conversations that I would have whether there's a microphone off or not.
Yeah.
But right now, when it comes to being present, when it comes to facing uncomfortable truths about our life and the world at large, the moment at the time of this recording, because who knows when people are going to hear this, someone might listen to this 20 years from now, I hope.
Yes.
But at the moment of this recording, the state of affairs in our world, and especially I think in this country where it's really culminating, is, from one perspective, I mean, it's unprecedented in the amount of insanity going on right now. And also just the speed with which current events are moving. It's dizzying and seemingly impossible to even keep up with. So starting with this, what I've referred to as a plandemic, and we don't have to go into all of that because I've done many podcasts about it.
Yeah.
But when this phenomenon, this medical phenomenon, let's just say, started to transpire and unfold, I really, as I do with everything, having a public platform, I really had to sit back, watch, wait, listen to all sides. It's just the way I operate.
Yeah.
Emotionally, I had a visceral reaction where I'm like, I want to form an opinion quickly and speak out and fight for what I think is right and all this. But I've learned a little bit over the years, 49 of them now, that it's best sometimes to keep studying and gather information and use my own presence to go inside and arrive at my perception of truth at any given moment, and perhaps explore that with guests and on my own.
Yeah.
On the heels of that came this racial unrest that's unfolding in this country that, obviously has been going on for a very long time and is now coming to a head. Equally with that situation, because there are so many elements to it, it's quite politicized. The media has a very strange role in it that I can't quite understand. I've been left a bit paused on really addressing it on the show. Not in my own interpersonal life and inside my heart, but it's not something I've really talked about because it's almost impossible to keep up with everything that's going on. And I think that, well, I want to just ask you some questions and really listen, but it's been a little bit difficult for me to get my head around because the experience that I come from in the many years of work that I've been doing, and even just how I was raised, I just really see other people and myself as a soul.
Right.
And so while I'm aware to some degree, I mean, in this lifetime, I'm in what you call a white body that has a penis, you know? So it's like, I'm a white male right now. But when I look in the mirror, I'm not like, Luke, you're a white guy. You know what I mean? It's just like, I look into my eyes and I go, where you at, dude? Like, I see the real me and I see the real you. And so I think at times it's hard for me to address these issues because while I'm aware that people have different experiences in life, because not everyone views themselves and other people as souls walking around in a different color or different gender body. To me, I'm just like, what is wrong with everyone? Like, so it's like what my mission, you know, as it feels to me, is to eradicate anything and everything in my life that's not truth and that's not love. And when it comes to injustice, when it comes to racism, when it comes to child abuse, when it comes to violence, any of these ills that pervade humanity, my approach and my viewpoint is that those ills that one might call evil, at their core are a lack of love.
Yes.
And so my personal solution is what's missing here. We need more love. And we need me and anyone that I can influence to see themselves not as their self-identity, as that egoic self of the shell of their vehicle, but who and what they really are. And that's kind of my perspective. The challenge there, and I can't wait to hear your take on this, is I realize that even though that's my perception of what the problem really is at its core and what the ultimate solution is, that communicating out in a way that doesn't negate other people's experience and the pain body collectively, ancestrally, globally, that people of color or any people that have been subjugated and exploited, how do I communicate that love is the answer without negating or neglecting to acknowledge that experience? Well, does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a great question. I want to say something really quick here that you said, and it just kind of went past. You talked about the truth being your compass. I don't know how you said it, but this is how I understood it. And truth is not corrupted. Truth is not skewed. Truth is actually the substance that makes the universe. It's mathematical. It's music. It's one. It's zero. So as far as your question about how do you express your opinion without negating or neglecting other people's experiences or perception of what you would say. And the first thing that came to heart and to mind is that there was a moment in America where there was a pause. It was press pause. Black Lives Matter. That's how I look at it. Doesn't mean that nothing else matters, but at this moment, Black Lives Matter. And then it's like when you make a movie, you zoom in, you zoom out, you zoom in and you zoom out. And what I'm seeing and hearing from you is like the zooming out, like, okay, you know what? We are in this mess. How did it start? And what's the answer? Because I don't watch the news because it's just the same thing. And it doesn't mean...
That's probably why you're so happy all the time. There's the key to it all right there.
But, you know, it's like I'm already aware, right? Like, you know, there's a field where, you know, we are aware of what's going on. And so when you look at what's going on, the injustice, the racial unrest, right now it's Black people. You know, next time it could be, you know, the brown people, the Mexican, go back to, you know, we're going to build a wall. I mean, it's different things at different times. And what you're doing is asking the question, what's the root cause? Because what we're seeing are the consequences of something.
Yeah.
That's how I'm understanding. Like, they are the consequences of something that is so unspeakable, that is so ugly, that is so inhumane that no one talks about it. It's easier to say somebody was killed than to really look at what did we do? What are we doing? How are we treating these people on a day-to-day basis? Are we treating them as humans? So yes, you can talk every day about somebody being killed and showing it over and over, but what is it bringing into the conversation? And you know, look, I just want to say this. It is not possible to understand something that is painful, something that is inhumane. You know, like you cannot understand it you can't understand it. That's why, you know, when you go deeper and you talk about love, because love is not just, love is an action verb. It's not just a noun. It's an action verb. And love has so many components because with love comes compassion. And when you have real compassion and you see yourself in somebody else, you're not going to put your knee on their neck. It's just not going to happen. You can still arrest them and put handcuffs and, you know, whatever, but you're not going to do that. When you have real compassion, you're not going to treat somebody as a subhuman, as a slave. And there's still slavery. You know, child slavery, women. This slavery with the Black people happened hundreds of years ago. However, it has never been acknowledged. It has never been exposed. It has never been, you know, there hasn't been reparation. This is not about trying to take it back like, oh, it didn't happen, or we're sorry, we didn't mean to do it. No, you meant to do it. It did happen. But how do you repair? By taking ownership and responsibility and saying, you know what? It happened. And this is where we are. We're bringing reparation, you know, however it is done. Because when somebody feels harmed, hurt, and the perpetrator doesn't even acknowledge the possibility of being hurt, that's when you have devastation. Because if you hurt somebody and you say, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it, or, you know, whatever, the person's like, oh, okay, I forgive you. That's how it happens. And what we haven't seen up until now is that willingness to acknowledge, repair, to own. And of course, it wasn't you or me, because we were not even like, we weren't here, right? We were not born yet. And so it becomes very tricky, because some people could say, well, it happened so long ago, why? But the wounds that are carried by the parents, I passed to the children, and carried in society, carried in everyday life. That's why you need that reparation. And when you repair, healing happens. Healing actually means becoming whole. That's what it means. Because when you have this, you're not whole, you're fragmented, you like, you don't feel like a human. You feel subhuman. And I'm not saying you feel like an animal, because animals actually feel better.
Yeah, I think many animals have it better off than we do.
Yeah.
They don't have that prefrontal cortex torturing them in the way that we do.
So to continue to answer you, when we have this type of issues that are so divisive and so painful, and that brings shame and also, really wake people up, because many people are like, oh, wow, I wasn't aware of this. Oh my gosh. People are starting to feel like, am I a jerk? Am I because I didn't know? And it's like, it's not about that. Yes, awareness is important. However, putting yourself down because you were not aware is also not okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think in this situation, as things have culminated into this kind of eruption of civil unrest, I've observed a lot of people in my field, and again, a little bit of judgment perhaps, but just an observation, if I can just be clinical and objective about it, is there's been this emergence of this kind of subconscious guilt and pandering and like virtue signaling and all of this kind of stuff. And
it's like, always, no, it's you're still doing it in a different way.
So what's your take on that particular phenomenon? Have you observed that?
Yeah, that's why I'm bringing it on. I've observed that, people like, and it's really about really knowing what's driving you. Meaning, like, if you're feeling guilty, what's really that about? What's that about? Were you mean to somebody in high school and it's coming up? Like, what is that? Why do you feel guilty? Like, really connect to that. And that's what you share from an authentic place, because that's what actually will empower other people to speak the truth, not what you think you should do. I should talk about this and talk about my privilege or whatever. It's what does it actually accomplish? If it's about the awareness that there is injustice that we have been blind to, and this is what we're going to do, then it's proactive, it's productive, it's positive, it's lifting up. This, like, putting the vibration down and being like, oh, mea culpa, I have sinned, I've been so bad. No, use your power, use your voice to say, you know what, enough. Because you saying that you're guilty really doesn't help anyone.
That's a really good point. Looking at, I don't know if you're familiar with the work of David Hawkins at all.
I love David Hawkins,
so
guy.
one of the biggest lessons for me in life is his scale of consciousness.
Oh, power versus force.
Yeah. And, how some say he borrowed some of it, wherever it came from. The scale of consciousness to me is just so beautiful because you've got these calibrated levels according to how much power those energy fields possess.
Yeah.
And at the very bottom of that scale is apathy.
Yes. And then guilt.
Yeah. And then guilt.
Yes.
And that's what I've been observing and, looking at situations like this and any kind of, social.
It's the worst.
Dis-ease is that we've got to get out of that energy field. And that scale is always my point of reference. And as this situation has unfolded, you see anger, justifiable.
Yeah.
Right?
And anger is actually an active energy. It's like anger, when it's channeled properly, is what can make you say, you know what, enough. Mm-hmm. Like you need to feel that thing that says that this stops now. It comes after anger. But if you're guilty, you're just sitting there. You're not doing anything. Like that's just a little tiny above apathy. And in that book, Power versus Force, he talks about how if you're vibrating at 500, which is the vibration of love, one person vibrating at that level can shift the consciousness of 750 people. Just one.
Well, this brings me back to that zoomed out perspective, as you said. And that's just the way I roll. Like I try to not get myopic about symptoms. I want to look at the cause, and the cause makes me go way back. Mm-hmm. This is where it gets a little tricky addressing an issue like this, is from that point of view, and I'm not saying I'm right, but from my perspective, the antidote to all cruelty and what we would deem as evil, again, which under my definition would be a lack of love.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as evil. There's just, it's missing love.
Yes.
In a non-dualistic kind of way of looking at it. So if we want true power to change, well, first the change has got to begin within. That's another part B. But part A is that I'm like, how do we get to level 500 as quickly as possible to get to that love, unconditional love? And what some people will hear, if that's not the paradigm of reality that they operate in, is that is spiritual bypass and not acknowledging that we have a problem. And that you're just, love and light. Like, everyone love each other.
No, that's not what you're saying. See, you remember when I said love is action? Actually, my medicine is love. Like, that's what I work with. And I want to challenge anyone here to really say that they do love. Because what love is about loving the unlovable, loving the lost, loving the rejected, loving the one who has hurt you. That's real love. Not love and light. Like, what's that? Love? Have you ever heard of fierce love, a mother's love? That lifts a car because their kid is trapped under. That's love. How can you lift the car of this unconscious behavior that brings racism at this level? How can you lift up that car? That's love. Not love and light. That's what I'm talking about. How can you vibrate? For those who are not activists or who don't march or who, you remember the Maharishi effect, which is when people of the same level of consciousness sit together and meditate, things change. They avoided wars with the Maharishi effect of consciousness. So there is something to do. Like when you're sitting in your house, maybe in judgment of, there goes Luke's story, talking about love or whatever you're doing. Just imagine, like, how could I change the world with my love? I actually had a challenge that I called Heart for Humanity, where I had people meditate 5 minutes a day with the vibration of their heart to change the world, because it is possible. It is possible. And so, you know, the second, the higher, the vibration above love is joy. And joy is even, more powerful. Like every time I feel really joyful, I send it, to the planet. And I was telling you a little earlier, and I imagine the planet with, new technologies and green technologies and soundless things. Like I constantly
quiet leaf blowers. I love that invention, by the way. Let's manifest that.
Yes, like these loud leaf blowers are like just dépassé. This is 2020. Come on. All those guys that are tech people who know how to, let's just eliminate, noise pollution. But yeah, when I meditate, I dream for the earth. I dream for the planet. And because I personally, I didn't go march. That's just not my thing. I'm more powerful energetically, right? So wherever you are. So when you talk about your zoomed out perspective, prefacing or, having a premise, like this is a zoomed out, how do we, it's not that you want to run away from what's happening, because that's what spiritual bypassing is. It's like, no, I know that this is happening. I'm just like,
well, it's dude, this is so rich. I love that we're diving into this. When all of this stuff started to unfold, I care.
Of course, I do know you. Yeah. Yeah.
When I felt I had something to say, my message is the presence of evil is the absence of love. What we need here is more love.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a little bit of flack. And of course, like it was very little from people that would be characterized as Karens, perhaps, as not wanting to face head on what we're going through as a species, and sort of being accused of like spiritually bypassing or something. And I'm thinking, man, people make so many suppositions and assumptions about what you're doing with your life and where you've been in your life. It's like the past 24 years of my life have been deeply dedicated to going into the darkest, gnarliest shit of every nook and cranny of trauma and all of that stuff, and bringing all of that to light within myself, so that I do have the capacity to actually bring my unconditional love to the world.
I receive your love.
Thank you. Thank you.
There's one thing I'm going to say, which is that every time you open your mouth or your brain to utter a thought, words, really notice where you're coming from. Because even thinking that somebody else is spiritual bypassing, okay, let's say that they do that. And then you blowing them out of the water, like, what is that? Like, if you really, like, if I think that you're suffering, like I'll be just like, hey, brother, what's up? Like, I'll talk to you privately. I'll be like, hey, are you okay? This is not the look I know. Like, why, like, what's going on? Like, what? I didn't really understand. Like, give the person a chance to actually express. That's why we're not expressed. Our self-expression as a society is like zero. We can't really say what we mean. We don't mean what we say. We're afraid to say what we want to, like.
Do you think that part of that tendency for us to reserve our truth is due to the cancel culture and political correctness and that sort of groupthink dominance and fear that is so prevalent now?
It is true that there is a paralysis happening. And it's really unfortunate because, when the racial unrest started and, some people were, expressing how they felt at their level, they got really like smacked and flack and just this like hate and anger. It wasn't even constructive. And it got me thinking, like, were you just waiting for an opportunity to like take those people down? Like what, like, do we need to perpetrate to continue this separation, this division, this labeling, this judgment? Like, if your tribe or your friends and you see that somebody failed by maybe saying something you don't think is appropriate, is this how you treat them? By just kicking them off the island? Like
right.
What
the Instagram island?
So really, notice how we appropriate, what's going on for our own benefits to show up as if, like we better and we know better. And really look at that. Really look at that.
Yeah.
Look at where you're coming from. Look at how's your heart? Is it really open? Because even when you want to give flack to someone, what kind of words are you using actually? Are they loving? Are they supportive? Are they constructive? Or do you just want to kill them?
Well, that's a phenomenon that I've observed through this in the world of social media it's
crazy. It's like,
is that I think most conscious people would like to, in whatever way they see appropriate and effective, elevate consciousness so that there's less hate in the world, right?
Yeah.
Many people in the social media realm are going about facilitating that end by hating the people that don't hate the other people enough. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I'm not saying shit. I'm going to sit this out for a couple of weeks and just relax and observe and just like, okay, this is getting weird.
I agree.
Because
it's what's happening is that, there's a big underbelly shadow in America and it's coming out. It's just like, roar. It's coming out,
Hatezilla.
I hate you. And I hate you because I hate you because you don't hate that person. Like, what is that? But it's happening. People are killing other people's businesses. It's like social media looting. It's like, they just, I don't see anything admirable about that. Whenever, like if you really have something to say that will destroy the other person, how can you say it so that everybody gets elevated? Maybe they're not educated. Maybe they never heard of it. And it's okay. And if you know so well, why not call them and be like, hey, bro, hey, sister, did you know that Black Lives Matters was, created in 2013 and it's in the UK and Canada. It's just not here. Like, educate. That's how you shift consciousness. You don't shift consciousness by, brutally, kicking people off or hating them or, blowing them out of water or pointing fingers and saying you're bad and I'm good. You shift consciousness by being at the level of consciousness where you want to be, by radiating, whatever it is, like joy, peace, love. That's how you do that. And it doesn't mean that you're putting your head in the sand. It means I see what's happening. I see that we are having this problem. And this is one of the ways that I think, as we figure out ways to change laws and, defund the police, like all that stuff, as we do all that, let's raise the vibration. You're not saying it didn't happen. You're not saying love and light and let's close our eyes. It's like, this is a very powerful way to do that. And, the other thing I want to say is this quote from Alice in Wonderland. I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like, everyone wants a magical solution, but nobody believes in magic.
Damn, that's good.
Right?
That's good.
So all these spiritual people say they're spiritual, and yet when you offer a spiritual solution, it's like, oh, you're bypassing. Okay, what do you like? Really?
That's great. Oh God, we people are so nuts. Jesus. So
yeah.
Because I'm someone, and this is I think really is born out of my recovery. I had a past of addiction. I'm sure my audience is tired of hearing about. I've talked about it a lot, but it's my story, and I try not to dwell on it, but my journey really started when I was reborn at 26 years old. And I was at the doors of death and absolutely suicidal and destitute and just as low as I've ever been in my life.
Right.
And it seemed to me at the time that my problems were that I smoked too much crack, took too much heroin, and got drunk as fuck every day. And smoked weed all the day, every day, and everything else I could ingest.
Yeah.
And all my problems seemed to me at that time, and from my childhood until 26, that every problem I had was created by taking those substances, okay? And so I went to a rehab. I learned to pray to God. And in a moment, I was just set free of that bondage.
Yeah.
And I knew that something had happened to me and for me that I had no responsibility in. I surrendered,
Yeah.
But what I quickly learned was that all of the underlying pain, memories, trauma, defects of character, ways of thinking, ways of feeling, ways of treating people, existential loneliness, acute selfishness and self-centeredness, dishonesty, just on and on and on, all those untrue parts of myself,
right,
and those painful experiences all started to come to the surface because now I didn't have any anesthesia.
Exactly.
And so I started to figure out, and through my recovery work and the 12 steps, that all of those problems that were bubbling up to the surface of my life were in fact symptoms of an underlying problem. And so for all of these years, I've been getting down to the root cause symptom of that, and going into the depths of every nook and cranny of hell, as I said, to uproot that stuff and put it out in the sunlight and heal it.
Yeah.
So in a microcosm of one lifetime here, that's the model that I see all problems from, is like, yeah, there's symptoms. Like, okay, so we could talk about, racism and corruption in our politics and in the media and all of this are symptoms. So if there is a cause there, the cause that I see is the lack of self-realization of individuals that don't know who the fuck they are.
Yeah.
And they've self-identified and been programmed largely by the media and by Hollywood to further self-identify into smaller and smaller groups. So that now I'm a cop and I see other as other, not as me. Or I'm a criminal or perpetrator, victim, whatever the case may be. Race, creed, color, nationality, sexual orientation, gender, all that. The more we self-identify as that, it creates a separation between ourselves and our heart and our God. And therefore, it's impossible to see others in an inclusive, unconditional, loving way.
Absolutely. This is so powerful.
Okay, so that's how I'm viewing the problem. Symptoms of that include child abuse. Boom.
Yeah.
Speaking of child abuse, Cookie just got hit in the head by the drum. Dog abuse. Sorry, Cookie.
No,
okay,
Cookie's
sweetie?
fine.
Cookie's
good.
She's a medicine dog.
So I want to bring some energetics for a moment.
Okay.
This drum jumped from the chair and fell down because of what you were saying. I was looking at you.
You didn't move?
No. Did I move? I didn't remember I was telling you that, oh, this is important. And then boom, it moved from here. And even if I had moved, this is a big chair. You said something that has a lot of power energetically, and the drum jumped and fell and made this noise. And right before it fell, I was already telling him, because I could feel it, like what you just said is so big. And it comes back to what I was saying, that the job of being human is to be you. Because if you're so separated from your core essence and identifying with these tiny little things, you can never be you. You're a cup. You're not you. And so I just wanted to say that you said something really big, which is this self-identification in a separation consciousness. This is actually how slavery happens. Like, you are separated from your humanity and you become programmed like a robot. And you think that it's you, but it's not. Separation.
If I'm a phantom self, believing that I'm a man, believing that I'm a white man, believing that I'm American, believing whatever, heterosexual, whatever, whatever that story is, and I see that as all I am, therefore I'm disconnected from who and what I really am, which is behind that mask or that vehicle that I've been granted. It's going to be impossible for me to truly have connectedness and compassion with others. And if I'm isolated as that false self, I have no empathy.
No.
So I can perpetuate violence, evil, abuse of all kinds on anyone because I don't realize in that state. I'm not saying I would do that, but I mean, I was kind of an asshole earlier in life, never to that degree. But I was a selfish dick a lot of my life. But when you don't understand and have the sensed experience of oneness and knowing that you're beyond this physical entity that seems to be you, you can harm another because you don't realize that other is you.
Exactly.
But with the realization that the only separation between you and I sitting here is just that on the material plane, we're separated by a body and a couple chairs.
Yeah.
But knowing that I am you on the level of consciousness, I could never knowingly harm you.
Absolutely not.
So seems to me the solution is to illuminate this principle, this master principle for people, and to go inside within oneself and make your number one fucking job in life to figure out who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
By removing what you aren't.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And in that, we find empathy and compassion and unconditional love. And within that container, idiocy and just complete the things, a concept like racism or anything like that is just completely idiotic and impossible. And from that vantage point. So my question to you, and I'm sure you've been answering it the whole time, but how do you convey that truth? without negating the experience of someone who doesn't yet see themselves and the nature of reality in that way?
You just convey the truth without negating their experience. And what I mean by that is when you share, like when you were talking about oneness, interconnectedness, I have experienced that. Like I have had plant medicine experiences or altered space where it's like, oh, this is the real reality. So I have done that. And I also know that there are other people who are very Newtonian, meaning they want to touch, they want to feel, they want to be proven that, this is what my reality is, and I defend my reality, I protect my territory. And there are those people at that level. So when you share or when you express your truth, which is something and it's a teaching, I think that it is not about concerning yourself with what your teaching will be thought about.
Right.
Yeah. And
that's good. Yeah. Because there is I think at the root of that for many people that do have a gift or a point of view, it's easy to second guess oneself and be like, I better not express my view because it could be taken the wrong way. And there you are, a victim of your own fear.
Exactly. Because then you're going into fear and you're actually not present. You're going into anticipation. What are people going to think? How, instead of, and I'm not saying that doing that will prevent people from, like giving you flack. However, when you show up in this, like, this is how when I feel that, it's like, you feel it. It's like, yeah, this is it. You feel it in your belly. And when you express that, it's not about telling anyone else that yours is wrong, mine is better. It's like, this is what I know. This is what I feel. Now, if you tell me that you feel something and I'm saying, oh, you're stupid, then like, am I telling you not to feel how you feel? Like, what is that? So as you express, it has to be a self-expression. Instead of, this is what you should do, it's like, this is how I feel. This is what's showing up for me. This is what I'm struggling with. This is my challenge. This is how I'm going to do this. This is how I'm going to show up. And, and invite people who want to, follow you to be with you. So that, so the key is not to project, like projections, interjections, making other people wrong. It's about you, and it's about sharing the truth. And I was going to talk about, of course, when you present opinions that are new and that people do not recognize, because the brain essentially only wants us to live in a familiar place. Like, that's its only job. It wants to learn how to tie laces and be done and put it, and whenever you bring something new, it's like, whoa, what's going on here? What? We have to learn how to. So when you bring something new, of course, it's going to shake people. But the premise, the preamble, the way you present it is what will make it timeless. It's like, now it's racism, it's sexual, gender, nationality. Like, we've been seeing this. But when you zoom out, like, your gift is like the eagle. You can be there and be like, this is what's going on. that's your gift. And you share it from that place, and you release attachment to anyone's opinion. But you also come from a place of integrity, like not saying, oh, you're an idiot because you're doing it this way. It's like, no, this is how I feel. So that's how I would answer that question.
That's beautiful. That's perfect. Yeah, I think in observing
and taking your time also, like, because what I was going to say also is that energetically, what's happening now is, it's like a fight with like a lot of people like fighting. So like, people don't even know whom they're hitting. So you want to keep zooming out. There is no pressure and no rush to give your opinion about this. You don't have to right now. Unless you want to.
Yeah.
Unless you feel called.
Well, I think that's
because
that's where I come from, or at least my intention is to come from authenticity.
Yeah.
It's always been my goal. More so than being liked or anything, is just if anyone's going to say something. I want
to say something really quick, because I've noticed energetically that there's bullying going on. I'm just going to say it right out. There's bullying. What have you said about this? Oh, I haven't heard you say anything about. It's like, really? Do I have to? Can I just feel and cry in my house at the injustice? Do you know how I feel? Do you know my belly? Do you see my tears? Do you see my sadness? Are you here with me? Why do I have to expose it to the whole world to see in order for it to be real? I know you. I know how you feel. So there's that bullying also, undercurrent bullying going on, and people positioning themselves. Oh, I had the most Black people on my platform. Like, what is that?
Well, thank you for illustrating that. I'm glad you did it and not me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I know how much you care.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I just have a commitment to myself. I make a lot of mistakes, I'm very
Who doesn't?
human. I mean, I just started smoking goddamn cigars again, and I quit nicotine like 9 years ago, and I'm never going back. I went to ceremony, Costa Rica. I was smoking some of that tobacco.
Oh, the mapacho.
Yeah, the mapacho in ceremony. I was like, Luke, you better not. And I thought, I'm in ceremony. It'll be fine. I came back. I was like, where's my Cubans? Good. It's delicious.
Yeah.
But anyway, I have my vices. I have my faults. I backslide. I make mistakes. But one thing that is just really, really important to me and my character is just truthfulness and authenticity.
Yeah.
And that is not always easy when one has put themselves in a position to have a platform and have a voice. And I mean, I know I'm not that big of a deal, but there's a few people going like, hey, what's your take on this?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm going to lay back in the cut, because when I say something, it's going to be true and it's got to be from the heart.
Exactly.
And I need the dust, like you said, the dust to settle a little bit. There's this skirmish and it's very, the view is obscured.
It is obscured. And
so the only thing that I know is the root cause. I think I know the root cause and I know the ultimate solution. But even when you pop off with that, if you're not saying that in a way that many people feel like you should say, their game of spiritual bypass is to project their shit on you.
Yeah.
Because you're not doing activism right.
Yeah. Which is like a label. Like, who said that this is how it's supposed to be done? Who said? Like, so really, it's, when I look at it, it's really bringing out the shadow, of the spirit, the conscious people. Like, how are you actually showing up? Are you that compassionate? When you point fingers, like, what is that? When you blow people out of the water, what is that?
Man.
Right?
So good. Yeah.
And so really, when I talk about self-awareness, is like every day, at the end of the day, I examine my day. I examine my day, because that's how you can pick it up. Because spiritual bypass or these things, they're so sneaky and sexy. I mean, it feels like, yeah, I'm standing up for the Black people, like you feel good. And it's like, what? By putting somebody else down? Like, what is that?
Yeah. It's not productive energy.
No.
Destructive energy,
Yeah.
I think is the thing I've observed with that,
I've observed it too. So really being true to yourself and not being pushed into taking a position that you're not comfortable with. And it's okay. Because, when you look at all the native societies, the Africans, the natives, like when there's a ceremony or a thing, like the elder is not the first person to speak. Actually, all the kids speak, and then like the teenagers, and then, like the grown-ups. And at the end, the elder speaks. Not at the beginning. So thank you for being an elder. That's how it happens. So, I mean, I'm a little silent because I know, I feel you. I feel your energy, and I know what you're doing for humanity and the planet, and it's one of the things that I experienced too. The translation of the metaphysical and the bioenergetics into words that are understandable by everybody. Like it takes time to distill the truth, your truth, my truth. And it's actually harder to hold in every situation. Sex, food, whatever, like holding is harder than doing, actually.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
What you're doing is actually harder.
I've noticed. I've noticed. Well, it's being thoughtful and, deeply caring, and also being thoughtful and wanting to demonstrate wisdom and to be patient. But you're right. It is a bit uncomfortable to sit in the patience sometimes and wait for understanding to pass through.
Yeah.
To where there's some path to navigate, at least to identify, okay, this is the way I'm seeing this. This is the way I think I can most effectively contribute. And I'm just staying to that course.
Yeah.
But before that, it's a little wonky.
It is.
Before one has a chosen path or perspective on something. Cookie just got her haircut today. Come here, sweetie. So pretty.
Oh,
so pretty.
Yeah.
This is one of the first times she's never jumped up on one of the chairs. Usually she jumps on the guest chair, and if there's
we've been communicating. Yeah.
You have?
Yeah. Yeah.
She's been a good girl.
She's been
What I
good.
want to ask you now, and thank you so much for that. What a gift to be able to get your perspective. It's just, oh man, it's like, it's so healing for me. I appreciate it. Man, God, we've covered so much, but I do have a couple other questions. And that would be,
drum roll.
No. This is good. We got through a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got through the sticky stuff.
I love sticky stuff.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. It's fun with you. I want to ask you, I think, really now, and maybe we can kind of bring it to a closure with this, is I think I asked you a bit about this before when it comes to plant medicines and their seemingly self-guided proliferation into Western culture, and the way these plants have seemed to make their way around the world now, and this subculture that's being created. I think I asked you about it, if I'm not mistaken, from the perspective of not so much the positive side of it, which I want to cover for sure, but in the kind of cultural appropriation of shamanic traditions and the sort of blasé plant medicine, just kind of perhaps unthoughtful side of it, in maybe done in a little less ceremonial or less conscious way. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you said something to the effect of, these plants want to get out and they have their way of doing it, you know?
Yeah.
And the plants ignore who's doing it right and who's doing it wrong. Like, they're going to get in the hands of the right people that are going to carry humanity forward through their gateways that they're opening to these other planes of reality. Something like that, or at least maybe that's my interpretation of how it works. So I guess my question is, what role do you see all of the different medicines that are now becoming more widely used? What's their role in our awakening?
So I'm going to finish with the first question about plant medicines, coming out and wanting to be used to be our allies in our awakening, our great awakening, and also really cautioning, people who are wanting an experience, to make sure that the person serving them the medicine has integrity. And I'm saying this because of safety. Are you getting a questionnaire about, your health, your medications, your allergies, things like that, because you can have bad experiences, right? So do your due diligence. So just that word of caution.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Whenever I do a show around that topic, I usually give a disclaimer, quite an extensive one at times.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate, I think, just using discernment, and it took me so many years of knowing about the plant medicines and psychedelics and whatnot before I decided to dive in, that when I did, I did a lot of due diligence to make sure that I was in good hands. And I've been very fortunate so far.
And to continue answering the question, I think that the, plant medicines are really here to help us bridge the gap between our humanity and the greater consciousness. Because to me, being human is actually all this. It's like multidimensional. Like that's what it means to me. And we have lost that. We have lost the connection to our hearts. We have lost the connection to our bodies. We live from the head up. We have lost the connection to nature. That's why we can damage it. So we have lost so much of what it means to be humans. And when people start working with plant medicines, they reconnect to their humanity. They reconnect to nature. They start, having this awareness of the greater reality of what's actually real, not what we're shown. And they're really happy to be here, and they really want to help. And they are coming. They are coming, and they are here. And let me see if, so like grandmother medicine is, I just see her like moving, and like brilliant colors and moving. This is the movement that I see. People probably don't, can't see me. However, it's like an undulating movement, like a dance, and the energy that comes from it is like pure joy, play, and yet structure and so she's here, and all the medicines are here. They want to be here, and they will be here. And so I'm not going to be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if, in a few years it's like so awesome. And the other thing I would like to see is more, I call it translation. When I was telling you a little bit ago about how, when we work with metaphysics and the spiritual and sometimes the translation of words, of concepts, like distilling it down where people can understand the principles, the practices can be a little challenging. So I look forward to seeing, better practices, with people who are providers and that are not real shamans and who, who serve a role, right? And more communication and connection with the people who live closer to these plants. And you use the word cultural appropriation, which, I think we're in one world. And I think that if only a certain people did certain things, like we wouldn't even travel to places, right? We would just be like, oh, you African and that's your thing, and I'm American, so and I'm not going to eat that food because it's your food. I mean, I guess, and like I said, I'm an Aquarian and I'm a rebel, and I'm really of like a human race. What's important is integrity, acknowledgement, sacred reciprocity, sacred activism. Like really being pure of intention. I think that that's probably what people are talking about.
Right.
And so if you find yourself, I've okay, let me find good words. So certain people, have, they host ceremonies and they have people, this, they give them medicine. They don't watch them. They leave before they're completely out of the, and like, that's not responsible. And they don't do things like in a sacred place. The plant medicine do not like that. They're sacred. So that is not okay. And if you feel called to be a provider, go do some learning.
Yeah.
Find a teacher in every hero story, because the thing is, you are dealing with people's consciousness. This is not light stuff. When you take those medicines, have you ever experienced that? You want somebody who can hold you. And you never know what could happen. So if that's what you want to do, go get some training. Get a teacher, get a mentor, get help, get support, so that you can share these beautiful allies in a safe and responsible way.
Well said. In my own experience at this point now, as I said, after being sober for a long time, I don't know if I ever talked to you about that, but for 22 years, I didn't take anything mind altering other than nicotine and caffeine, you know?
Yeah.
And then in 2019, I went and did a series of ayahuasca journeys, and it's just, I don't have to tell you, but nothing was ever the same. And I was able to, I think because all the work that I'd done, just boots on the ground on the natch for so many years, just fucking meditating, just all of the discipline and all of the surrender. I think that foundation was really helpful for me going into that first medicine experience, because
it does.
I know what surrender feels like already. And so there was no resistance. It was just like, oh shit, let's do this. Let's go. Let's go, mama. You know, I'm just like,
I know that
I just had complete trust for the experience, the facilitators, the medicine, etc. This was at a place called Rhythmia. And it's been interesting over the past, I guess it's been a year and a half, because I've had so many insights and so many profound changes that have just sped up my evolution and my healing and my growth, and just knocked down walls and walls and walls of things that were preventing me from fully expressing my Dharma, my destiny, who I am, my authentic self, as we've been discussing. And because every single experience I've had, which has been quite a few different medicines up until this point, have been so productive. It's like I know my intention when I walk in. My guide knows the intention.
Right.
I'm not just fucking around to see some colors, although that's nice too. I'm not mad at that part either at all. I'm not going to lie about that. I love hallucinating,
Yeah, it's...
But the thing is with that is and someone I really respect and care about recently just said, hey, I'm feeling a little something with you and this journey that you've been on, that there's something a little off with it, and they didn't say exactly what, but they said, maybe open your mind to consider just a pause on this exploration, and to me, it's like,
what does that mean in English?
Well, I'm like, they didn't even recommend that I pause. I think they just said maybe it's something to take a look at. This is becoming
So what they're saying is you're doing too much medicine, or
maybe it's that it's a little bit, not like in an addictive way, but just it's getting pretty frequent because I just love it. And because every time I get so much done. It's like this sense of accomplishment, like, fuck, I just relived my birth and healed that. I just went through 3 past lives and healed, I'm just like, the medicine is just gifting me these experiences. So the question there, understanding the sacredness of ceremony, the intentionality, the company, the setting, all of that, cool. As you indicated, I'm wondering, where the line is of perhaps not getting addicted to the experience, but perhaps an attachment to the progress being made.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I totally get it.
So it's like if last weekend I took 7 grams of mushrooms and figured out my entire career or the book that I'm going to write, or, worked through a relationship problem or whatever it was, to me, it's like logically, well, I should do that again this weekend. Look what a gift that was. Why would I just not do this all the time?
So there are, 2 phases of actually having a plant medicine journey. Actually 3. The first one is the preparation. The second one is the actual ingesting the medicine, sitting in ceremony. And the third part is the integration. So the integration part is what sometimes many people skip, because it could take even 2-3 months, for the downloads to really finish coming through. Depending on who you are, right? For some people who are advanced, it's like, it comes and they know. And so after you're done with an experience, consciously deciding to have an integration time will help you notice that, am I wanting to run away, or am I doing this, or do I just want, and the second part of my answer is that, addiction is such an interesting term, right? So, for example, the traditional way of sitting in ceremony is really not what, most Western societies are using. Like we're using plant medicine for evolution, our business, it's not like you're going on a vision quest to, where you then come home and sit for 6 months with like a shaman guide, like trying to excavate what, this is like, I have a business and I came here, grandmother, because I want you to help me release whatever is blocking me for seeing my bigger vision, right? And then boom, you do that. So you don't need to sit there 6 months if she said, oh, you got to heal that shit. Like, yeah, go heal it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like you have to see the context. But the thing that's for sure is that plant medicines are not used anymore like they were. It's the intentionality. And however, you always have to have integration. And when you give yourself a period of integration, it will help you not miss things that might be subtle. Because the thing about plant medicine, you have the big, like huge stuff. And then you have the subtle stuff that's also happening that's easy to miss if you don't get yourself an integration time. Usually 3 weeks is good.
That's really helpful. Yeah. And it reminds me of, the experience I alluded to earlier of the 5-MeO DMT.
Yeah.
Which is,
well, yeah.
Which is very brief in its, the actual experience itself.
It's like minutes.
It's brief, but the initial, acceleration or leaving the orbit is so fucking intense that it was like the integration of that is, and there was like past live things and things with my mother and some beautiful things that came out of it, but the actual just the brief moments or however long it was where there was an obliteration not only of the personality and the egoic self, but also of the observer.
Yeah.
Almost all the way where there's not even an observer observing it,
No, it's just like one.
Just oblivion, you know? And so in situations like that, the integration is just like, I don't know what that meant. It's just going to manifest and I probably won't even know how it's integrating, right? And so what's happened since that, interestingly, and I think there's a correlation here, just brain chemistry wise, if nothing else, is after that, I decided to take a pause because I respect, my loved ones that said, hey, maybe just consider just slowing down for a second and taking a look at that. Okay, cool, I'll do that. And I think really what's happened in the integration of that experience is it was great advice because it's allowed me to really get very grounded. Because I was getting a little like, I just want to be in the quantum, man. Like, I don't want to be in my body. Like, I'm out there getting stuff done in the ethers and past lives and talking to the elders. It's like, why do you want to be down here?
Oh, no, you do want to be here.
So what I've done is just really like, man, I'm organizing my Dropbox folders and I hired a new assistant and I'm doing real like earth stuff.
Yeah.
We're writing my book, getting, writing coach, outline, proposal. I'm actually like extremely focused and grounded. And I really think that last medicine experience, whatever it did to me and for me, allowed me to just land back here and be more focused and more effective.
Yeah, it's one of the things that when I work with my clients is you live on earth.
God damn it.
This is where you are, like you're in a body. And so everything is a dance. It's a balance, right? Sometimes, going, I don't know how often you use plant medicines, but sometimes there's something that you're seeking, that it could be conscious or unconscious. And when you get it, like you get it, you stop. So if you're still going, it's not necessarily an addiction. It is, you're looking for something that you're not getting. And so you think, well, maybe if I do it this way or with this one, I will get that. And you might not know what it is.
That's really interesting that you would present it that way, because I just remembered one, in that last experience, one brief part that I remember was, I remember asking sort of, the medicine or God or just the field or my higher self. I said, man, why am I'm so gung-ho. I'm so full on with like my growth and my commitment. And I was sort of tuning into some past lives where I was just so deeply committed to my spiritual path.
Yeah.
And I said, why am I so hardcore about everything? I'm just so extreme. Like I'm just doing this, And the answer came back. It said, I answered the question kind of, I said, because I want it all. And then immediately the medicine said, Luke, you already have it all. It's like what you're looking for in all this shit, it's already there.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful gift.
Yeah.
That was obviously, and I think that also kind of resonated with that pause of like, oh, maybe, not to say I'm never going to do plant medicines ever again, but
no, but
maybe it is time to stop and go, well, shit, like I actually made a lot of progress.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm doing okay. I don't have to like, just keep charging forward on this
and
pursuit of enlightenment,
And the other thing is that, depending on the beginning of the journey, you talked about your addiction, and usually post recovery, not like at the recovery, people really have to be vigilant. And it's kind of like you got to do it every day. And so and when you start being committed, about your ascension, your enlightenment, your, however you want to call it, then of course, when you start seeing results, it's like, I want more results. So I need to do more. And that's why I talk about the providers. Like when you have facilitators that are, at a certain level, they will tell you need an integration, period. You need an integration so that you can receive, you can come back in your body and you can live that here. And everybody's integration is different. Integration period is different. And the other thing is that you always want to make sure that you come into your body, because this is where it's happening. And, you see a lot of conscious people who are, like they're not even here. And that's like, our job is to be here and to be, actually, because we are the only place where we get to have a body. We get to have a body. We get to feel. I had an experience where I was holding a ceremony, plant medicine ceremony, and there were entities that were trying to come in that I didn't want to come in. And so I had said no. And they actually, like, they attacked. Like, I was battling with them, but I was battling with them with, like, if you had a visual, it was like mathematical equations. I mean, of course, this was like being encoded, from the divine, and so I was telling them that this place is a place of love. And they were battling me because they didn't know what love meant. They didn't know what love was. These entities, they didn't know. And so I feel like the whole room was like mathematical equations, like in like 3D. And when the space was filled, I was like, this is love. Like it took it took like the whole room with symbols and things. And when I said this is love, they were like, oh, and they left. Like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, like if she had looked at me, I was doing like that, just like writing and like the whole room going up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And I was explaining to them like, this is love. And they were like, no, we don't get it. We don't get it. And then when everything was done, I put equal love. And then they were like, wow. And they were like, cool.
That's awesome. I love that. I remember when one of my first couple of 2 or 3 ceremonies, maybe afterwards, speaking to a couple of the facilitators. And I was like, man, I just saying, man, thank you so much. You guys held this amazing space. Like, just incredible the way you orchestrate this. And it was just fascinating. It was quite a big group of people, maybe 50 participants, you know, and they were just so on it. And she was just explaining her process. And she said, well, yeah, you know, we're all drinking the medicine all night. And I was like, wait, what?
Oh yeah, you have to drink the medicine.
She's like, yeah. I was like, I'm laying there like, I mean, I can't even walk, you know. And she's like, oh yeah. She goes, that's how we create the grid.
Yeah,
she's like the grid, and it was kind of like what you described. She's like, oh no, we set up the grid in the room to make it safe and secure for everyone. And I was
because
like, whoa.
When the medicine comes, like everybody comes to play, the good, the bad, the like. Oh yeah, you have to set up a grid. And it's like, no, you don't come. And if people try to, like those, I think they just kind of saw like, oh, I think there's a party there type of energy and let's go. And I was just like, no. And they were just like, what? Kind of like that. And then I was like, no, this place is like about love. But yeah, no, you drink the medicine and because that's how you go into that consciousness. So when I'm holding a ceremony, for example, I could be sitting here, but I'm with you and I know what's happening, or if you need help, or that person, like I don't even have to like open my eyes to see. It's like a grid. It's so beautiful.
The thing I want to close with is an idea that I intuit that you've considered, going back to the root cause of suffering, and especially suffering that's perpetuated by one on another. Mm-hmm. If at the root of that is the ignorance of what one really is, as one single point of consciousness in the greater whole of unity, of one unified field of intelligence and love, one aspect of God, if that's what we are, if we're unaware of that, we'll harm ourselves, we'll harm others. There's this sense of separation. Mm-hmm. And as you said, some people are trapped in that Newtonian paradigm where you can explain that to them and it sounds insane because they've not yet had that visceral experience. They still think this chair is solid, the table's solid.
Right.
You're a black woman, I'm a white man. There's rules around all of this. We have to follow this, you know.
Yeah.
There's history that we have to act out and, you know, all this shit.
Right.
It seems to me plant medicines might be the way on a large scale out of that. And I say that because every time I'm on medicine, I'm like, how can we get the shit in the water supply at Washington, D.C.? Like, if we like dosed everyone in the media and in the world banking system and in the education system and in all governments and police force and military, if we could just show them who and what they are, then we could have a quantum shift. I know that's an idealistic impossibility at this point, but
maybe not.
What do you think?
I think that, it reminds me of the pill in the Matrix, and really knowing that it's a dream that we can dream. There are dreams that I call impossible dreams, but they can still be dreams. And knowing that when you dream impossible dreams, it's not always straightforward, and there can be challenges. But I think that dreaming a world where plant medicine teachers can be adjunct to our education, to our growth, is possible. And knowing that, growth or becoming aware of reality is not always easy. It reminds me of a quote, a dialogue in The Matrix, the movie The Matrix. It's Neo. Neo says, ask Morpheus, why do my eyes hurt? And Morpheus tells him, because you have never used them before.
Damn. That's good.
So being awake can hurt. And so taking all that into consideration, I think that plant medicine teachers could be the way to really create a better equality system, an equality in consciousness and awareness, and create change from that level and bring that change down to the physical level. Because when you're conscious of something, when you become aware, you can never unsee it. You can never unknow it. And they're all based on love. I mean, these plant medicine teachers love us.
Who have been 3 teachers or teachings that have influenced your life that you might share with the audience?
3 teachings?
Mm-hmm. Or teachers.
Teachers.
Books, philosophies, people, anything.
So grandmother ayahuasca, she's been a great teacher. Her patience. And I remember, not this, like a journey before last. I wasn't leading the ceremony. I was there as like an extra shaman. So I was having a journey, and I had taken the medicine, and all I could see was black. And it's color, right? All I was seeing was black. And then I was like, I closed my eyes, I turned, I squinted, squeezed, and it was just black. And then I asked her, I was like, well, what's going on? And she said, oh, you need to be comfortable with the dark. I was like, whoa, what does that even mean? But I was like, okay. And she let me be like that. Like I wasn't seeing anything. I was just seeing black. And then after a while, she said, do you know what this is? I was like, no. She was like, this is the void of creation.
Wow. Damn.
I know. She's like, if you're not comfortable in the dark where nothing exists, you cannot be a creator. Because before things are created, they don't exist. If you create something that already exists, you're just copying. So you need to be comfortable here. I was like, damn.
That's dope.
That's dope. I mean, like,
I like that.
She works with me like that way. I want to say I learned a lot from David Hawkins because for the first time I could put into words the things that I knew but couldn't explain. So it was more of a technical language, tools that could help me translate the quantum field, the energetic field, the consciousness field, and I really learned a lot from him. Who else? My teacher of bioenergetics and sound harmonization, French, and like he, when I studied under him, we were like working with the music of the stars. Like he would create the horoscope or the cosmic picture of the day. And, each planet has like notes, and that's where the music of the spheres, comes from. And so we were working with the stars, and we did qigong of the stars, and like I really got to express at a universal level. Like there was no limitation. And the whole premise was when I look at the moon, I become the moon. When I see the stars, I become the stars. When I see the river, I am the river. I am the moon. I am the sun. I am the stars. So that really helped me expand my field, expand. And, we worked a lot on the heart, forgiveness, compassion, acceptance. And my heart field is like, if you see energy, it's like, it's a vortex. And so that was like, yeah.
Does that teacher have a name?
Fabien Mamon.
Fabien?
Mamon. Yeah.
Fabien Mamon.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll try to track them down and put it in the show notes. This has been incredible, man. Oh my God. It's such a gift to be able to have conversations like this. The icing on the cake is that it's being recorded, and that I just can hope someone could have one small, slice of the joy that I get out of having conversations with such amazing people like you. It's just, it's an excuse, like having a podcast is an excuse to have conversations like this and be able to take a couple hours to do it. If we were at a party or something, we'd chat for a minute and be like, she was awesome, but we couldn't really dive in unless we really became friends, So I want to thank you. And where can people find your website, which is your new beautiful website, and your social media and whatnot?
So I'm going to give them, use evolvewithmarie.com. It will take you to my website where you'll find free resources. You'll get to know me and interact with me. Evolve is EVOLVE with Marie, MARIE.com. And my Instagram is Marie Mbouni MD. So my last name, Mbouni, is spelled M-B as in boy, O-U-N as in Nancy, I. So at Marie Mbouni MD on Instagram and Facebook, the same.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining me. This has been a great time.
So good. I love you. And it was fun. And I got to say what I wanted to say. You know, I want to really say this. I did not feel inhibited at all. I did not feel like I had a, how do you call that? An outline or a byline. Like I didn't feel stuck in a box. I felt free to express. And this is a gift. Not everyone can do that. You know, like when you ask a question, you let it go. You're not attached to how I'm going to answer. and that is huge. Like, you know, I get interviewed a lot and people are like, you know, they ask a question, but they hope that I'll answer it a certain way. And I'm like, wait, now there's pressure. Like, but with you, I was free to do what I want. That's huge. And thank you.
Thank you
for creating such a platform and having me. I love you.
I love you too. I'm glad you came back. Yeah. I'm glad we got it done finally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you ever serve up some medicine, please let me know. I'd love to hold that space with you someday.
It is already done. It is done. It is done. And, you know, since things are closed, you know, I do drum journeys that take you like without plant medicine. Or
you just did one at the beginning. I'm telling you.
No, it was
my hard
gift.
to talk. I was like, oh shit.
It's one of my gifts. Like I can take people like I just go. Like that's my gift. Like just like that. So cacao, drum.
Rad.
Yeah. We'll do it anyway.
All right. Set. All right. Thanks so much, Marie.
You're welcome.